So, you're here to play Pokemon. You're here to play Gen 3. And of course, you're here to trade. But you don't know how. Well, you've come to the right place. For you see, I'm going to do exactly that. Hello, my name is Vince, and today we're going to be covering Gen 3 Pokemon trading throughout various core Pokemon games. And we're going to be starting with Ruby and Sapphire, basic trading. As you can see here, we have ourselves VisualBoyAdvance. And without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to be controlling both at the same time. And we're already at the trading club. Make sure you have at least 2 Pokemon, your Pokedex, and what have you to even initiate trading. So what we're going to do is go to our options, link, and start network link. We're going to have to do this for both. Now, player 1 is going to be the server, and this is going to be the client. Make sure the port is the same. We're going to press OK on this one. It's going to wait. And it looks like we're good. So it looks like you might have to do it beforehand. Yep, you got to do it beforehand. Oopsie. Alright. Main person does the confirmation. And there we go! Let's trade some Pokemon. So we'll just trade some basic Pokemon. Yes! There it is. There we go. Working good so far. A bit of advice is to not mess around with other windows or try to pause the game. Either game. That will very quickly crash things. So, for example, yeah, see, if you even mess around, it'll just, So if you face a disconnect, there are one of 2 ways to fix it back up. The first is to close both your Visual Boy Advances and launch them again. The other is to go to Link, Type, select Nothing. Do this for all players. Do it again, this time hitting Cable on both. And then start the network link the same way you did it before. It is a bit more tedious, but thankfully you don't have to reset as many things depending on the game. Alright, we've traded. Pokemon Generation 3 trading. Alright, so I think we're done here with Ruby and Sapphire. So then we'll go to FireRed and LeafGreen. Make sure things work right. Okay, and now we're going to try Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen. Oh man, one of the things I don't like about FireRed and LeafGreen is how they just try to cram tutorials into everything. Alright. Okay, there we go. Trade is going as normal, so we'll skip ahead to the end. Okay, that worked pretty well. Now there's one last thing about Game Boy Advance trading, and that's the Gen 1 remakes to the Gen 3 core games. Now, Gen 3 trading is weird. They seriously made me learn Braille for this. But as long as you fulfill the requirements of each game, you should be able to trade. Okay, let's trade some Pokemon. We are currently bypassing time, space, reality, and pants. Not sure about that last one, though. And here we go. Raichu, Bayonet. We are going over to the other side. And there we go. Success. And that's basically all the Game Boy Advance trading we need to cover. Up next, we have a couple of the Dolphin games that involve Pokemon. Pokemon Colosseum, Colosseum Bonus Disc, and Gale of Darkness. But before we do that, we're just gonna go look at our config first. We're gonna go to our GameCube. And we're gonna make sure we run GBA cores in dedicated threads. All you have to do is find a GBA BIOS online. It should just be GBA BIOS.bin. Should be easy to find. And on the port 2 ROM, because the first port is going to be standard GameCube controller, the port 2 ROM needs to have a ROM of any of the Gen 3 games. So, for instance, I'm using Emerald. And make sure you have a save file that contains Elite Four data, because otherwise you will not be able to do the trading on Pokemon Colosseum and Colosseum Gale of Darkness. And one more thing, gotta make sure your save file has a 2 or the corresponding number of the controller port that you're using. So I'm using the second controller port, and therefore I have a -2 on it. This is very important. That is how these save files work. They work by the controller port. Alright, so now that we got that covered, we're going to go to our controllers. And we have port 1 as a standard GameCube controller. And on port 2, if you have a modern version of Dolphin, I think anything 5.0 and more recent, you can go set in port 2 as GBA integrated. And look at that. Look at that. Woo! Okay, so now we're booting up Pokemon Colosseum for the GameCube on Dolphin. We're going to be in the Fenax City Pokemon Center in the basement. We're going to save our data for Colosseum and on our GBA game. I prefer to disconnect it real quick and then reset it and then reconnect it. Connection is checking. Let's see if it works. And we're linked. So I'll press A on the Game Boy Advance, and then you can control the player 2 on the Dolphin screen. That can be a bit. That could be a bit of a thing to to notice. Trade via the Game Boy Advance's A button. Yes and yes. And the nice thing is that it goes really fast. Look at that. That's fast. Now, for the sake of argument, we will do it for XD Gale as well, just to see how well that works. There we go. There's XD. Alright, so we'll do a trade as usual. Let's trade this Articuno. And then we will trade for this Lapras. And it's more or less the same. There we go. Look at that. Success. And that's trading via GameCube to Game Boy Advance. But there is one last thing I want to show you. And that was the bonus disc that was promoted for Pokemon Colosseum. Yes, in fact, there is a ROM for this. And that's where we're going to be heading right now. Okay, so this is the Pokemon Colosseum bonus disc. But on the right, there's a little special something for people who got this. This is Jirachi's special gift. And what you can do with this little application is that you can get yourself your own Jirachi. As long as you have Pokemon Ruby or Sapphire and free space available in your party, you can get yourself a Jirachi. It'll ask if you have a free space. Now, it's also important that you can't use Emerald and you can't use FireRed or LeafGreen. Ruby and Sapphire are the only ones that actually work. So we'll press yes. It'll prompt us to hook it all up. Now it shows us the fourth port, but you can use any of the ports as long as you've named your save file correctly. So I'm using port 2, so I'm using save file -2. And we basically got it hooked up. Now all we gotta do is disconnect it, reset it, and then reconnect it. We've got communication. I found this to be, this series of ways of doing it is the best way of doing it. If I don't disconnect it, I usually get an error. But, check it out. Seems we're working fine. Look at that. I swear, I've done this recording so many times. I practiced this so many times, and I've always, like, screwed up so many times. And look at that. Jirachi's so happy, because I did it right this time. And there it is. Jirachi is on our Game Boy Advance. I did it correctly. And that's basically all you need to know about Gen 3 trading. I hope this video was informative. My name is Vince, and I'll be heading on out. Later, everybody.